Homeschooling, also known as home education, is the education of children inside the home as opposed to the informal settings of public or private school. Home education is usually conducted by a parent or tutor. Despite the name, only a portion of home education may be delivered in the family home, with the best provided within the local community and elsewhere. Many families that start out with formal school structure at home often switch to less formal and, in their view, more effective ways of impacting education outside of school, and many prefer the term home education to more prevalently used homeschooling. Homeschooling is the term commonly used in North America, whereas home education is more commonly used in the United Kingdom, elsewhere, and in parts of Commonwealth countries. Prior to the introduction of the compulsory school attendance laws, most children's education was impacted by the family or community. However, in developed countries, homeschooling is the modern sense and an alternative to attending public or private schools and is a legal option for parents in many countries. For much of history and in many cultures, enlisting professional teachers, whereas tutors or in a formal academic setting, was an option only available to the elite social classes, such as royalty or wealth. For much of history, thus until the recent activity, the vast majority of people, especially during early childhood, are educated by family members, family friends, or anyone with useful knowledge. The earliest public schools in modern Western culture were established in the early 16th century in the German states of Gotha and Thuringia. However, in the 18th century, the majority of people in Europe lacked formal schooling, meaning they were homeschooled, tutored, or received no education at all. Regional differences in schooling existed in colonial America. In the South, farms and plantations were so widely dispersed that community schools, such as those in more compact settlements, were impossible to reach. In the middle colonies, the educational situation varied when comparing the states of New York and Massachusetts until the 1850s. Formal schooling in a classroom setting has been the most common means of schooling throughout the world since the beginning of time, especially in developed countries since the early and mid-19th centuries. Native Americans, who traditionally used homeschooling and apprenticeship, vigorously resisted required education in the United States. People claim that the studies show that the homeschooled students do better on standardized tests compared to the voluntary homeschooling testing, while mandatory public school testing is required. By contrast, SAT and ACT tests are self-selected by homeschooled and formally students alike. Homeschoolers average higher scores on these college entrance tests in South Carolina compared to the rest of the country. Other scores showed mixed results. For example, showing higher levels for homeschoolers in English and reading on the ACTs, but mixed scores in math and on the national average of the ACT opposed to homeschooling, where the national average was a 511, and on the 1999 SAT math. Some advocates of homeschooling and educational choice counter with an input-output theory, pointing out that home education educators only expand on an average of $500 to $600 per year on each student, in the comparison to $9,000 to $10,000 for each public school student in the United States, which then suggests educated homeschool students would be especially dominant on tests if afforded to access to an equal commitment on tax-funded educational resources. So a lot of families are opposed to the homeschooling because of the amount of the state, or I should say the state taxes which are required for public education. In regular school, less time to learn life skills in a natural manner. So students have, in a regular school setting, they may not have the ability to learn, in layman's terms, street smarts compared to that of a homeschool student who may learn it from their mom or their dad, or having an education at home. In addition, children who are homeschooled normally aren't tired or stressed. They have more time and are frequent to do their homework and their studies as they please, whereas in a traditional school setting, students are required to take notes frequently and pay attention to the teacher without goofing around. Homeschooling, however, may have fewer resources, but may have an easier access to the proximity of resources, whereas regular school might not have resources simply because of a large class setting. So a small group of homeschooled students may have the ability to travel to a history museum more often than than students who don't. Regular schooling is known to be less independent because of the scheduled learning, whereas homeschooling may be more independent because children tend to be more unique and design their own education and taking responsibility for it. Seeing that homeschooling may have poor curriculum because their teachers or parents aren't very qualified towards a regular school, students have more teachers and are diverse in plenty of subjects. Thank you all so much.